The film begins with Boykins, a retired gangster who once belonged to the mafia, but now lives a quiet life in a small town in the Appalachian region of Oldham County. Far removed from the violence that once defined him, detached from guns and chaos, he now devotes his days to working under the facade of a humble farmer. He lives in a modest farmhouse with his brother-in-law Finney and his recently orphaned niece Savannah, striving to redeem himself from his past and stay off the radar. After spending the morning doing farm chores alongside Finney, Boykins takes Savannah to the local church. There, the priest asks about Finney and comments that he should be taken out of the house to distract his mind. Ever since his wife died, he has found solace only at the bottom of a bottle. Boykins knows this, and though he does not say it out loud, he fears that his brother-in-law might be too broken to ever stand up again. Later that day, they stop for lunch at a small-town diner. Boykins steps outside to make a phone call to Savannah's father, leaving the girl alone at the table with her meal already starting to cool. In that very instant, the calm of the place is shattered when a group of thugs enters the diner. Without asking permission, they sit down directly beside her. Though Savannah does not recognize them, their expressions and piercing looks make it clear they are not there by coincidence. They are old associates of her Uncle Cash, sent directly by the local crime boss with a message about the farm. When they return home, they find Finney drunk, surrounded by empty bottles at the table. His daughter hugs him and tells him they had been waiting for him at the diner. Boykins asks Savannah to go to her room so he can speak to her father privately. Alone, Boykins explains that some old acquaintances showed up at the restaurant delivering a direct message. They mentioned an unpaid debt to Kat, the mafia boss. After an uncomfortable silence, Finney finally admits what he had been hiding. He used his late wife's house as collateral. He says he had no choice and insists that if he had not done it, they would have ended up on the street. Furious, Boykins tells him he should have gone to the bank for a loan, but Finney replies that he already owes them too much and had no other way out. He claims he has an arrangement with the mafia and intends to pay back the debt once he sells the cattle. He adds that the house technically does not belong to them yet, but Boykins interrupts, enraged, reminding him that with the mafia, there are no simple deals. What seemed like a single loan was tied to clauses he probably never even noticed. Maybe he thinks the house is still his, but the moment he signed those papers, he lost it completely. Boykins takes a deep breath and, in a calmer tone, tells him he'll handle the problem, that he knows how the mafia operates. But he makes it clear that Finney must stop drinking and start spending real time with his daughter. Savannah needs him. She cannot keep growing up feeling alone while her father drowns himself in liquor. Later, at the county hall, Boykins walks in determined. Crossing the lobby under the eyes of security guards, he approaches the desk where an assistant stops him, saying he cannot see the county official without an appointment. At that very moment, Zyke appears at the end of the hallway. Recognizing him, he calls out and invites him into his office. Inside, Boykins gets straight to the point. He wants to know about Finney's debt and how to settle it. Zyke calmly replies that he must be mistaken, because according to the signed documents, the farm no longer belongs to Finney or his family. It is now Kat's property. Perhaps, with luck, someday they might reclaim it, but Zyke makes it clear this is not a conventional debt that can be paid in cash. These deals only close when Kat herself decides they are closed. Meanwhile, back at the farm, Finney shares a quiet moment with Savannah while helping her with homework. Suddenly, two vehicles pull up outside. The mafia gangsters rush in. Back, the gang leader sneers as he tells Finney that their boss sent them for a little checkup visit to make sure the investment is still in place. Without giving him a chance to react, they begin beating Finney mercilessly. His daughter screams in desperation, and one of the thugs tries to silence her. Shaking with fear but resolute, Savannah grabs a knife from the table and slashes the man's face. Enraged, he strikes her hard, knocking her to the ground, then grabs her by the hair. Both are dragged outside. Back pulls out a gun and fires right next to Finney's ear, leaving only the deafening ring as a clear warning of what will happen if the debt remains unpaid. Just as Boykins arrives, he sees from a distance the last of the gang leaving the farm. He recognizes them instantly and races forward with his heart pounding. When he gets there, he finds his sobbing niece trying to help her injured father. He rushes to Finney, carries him to bed, and checks his head carefully, especially his ear. Despite the gunshot fired so close, there is no visible wound. He embraces him tightly and promises he will take care of everything, telling him he will be back in a couple of hours. Soon after, Boykins is seated across from Sheriff Jollister, fists clenched, brow furrowed. He recounts what happened at the farm, how Finney turned to the mafia for money, and now Kat's men are tormenting them. The sheriff listens quietly, then after a pause, remarks with dry irony that he always imagined he would see Boykins in his station, but on the other side of the bars. Though he doesn't like him because of his violent past, he admits he would love to bring down Kat's reign. Still, he makes it clear that nothing can be done with words alone. They need real evidence, something solid, not just accusations. With no other option, Boykins decides to confront Kat directly. Pulling up near her mansion, he is immediately met by guard dogs. Within seconds, Kat herself appears, flanked by her men. Recognizing her former associate, she raises her hands, and the dogs back away instantly. With a cold smile, she gestures for him to come inside, as if she had been expecting him all along. Without wasting time, Boykins demands to know her true intentions. Kat responds that she has no interest in the farm. The loan to his brother-in-law was nothing but an excuse to get his attention. He reminds her of their deal when he left the mafia, when she promised never to involve him again. She replies that things have changed. Since his retirement, her business has grown. She is building an empire, and this is a delicate time for her organization. She needs his help. Her men are strong. They know and respect her rules, but none of them compare to him. She knows him too well. He could always move among people with ease, charming one moment and ruthless the next, showing not the slightest trace of remorse. That was what made him special. She tells him he needs to do 3 jobs, that it will be the only thing she asks in exchange for forgiving his family's debt. Our protagonist accepts, but makes it clear that he doesn't want surprises or hidden conditions, only the 3 jobs, nothing more. Back at the farm, Finney opens up to his brother-in-law. He admits that giving up alcohol is impossible for him, that no matter how much he knows what he should do, he simply can't. Boykins grabs the bottle from his hands and throws it straight into the bonfire. He tells him he's going to help him get his life back, but he also needs him to make an effort. He cannot keep falling apart. He has a daughter who needs him, and every decision he makes directly affects her future. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to one of the mafia's warehouses, where a pair of drug addicts are being brutally tortured after trespassing on the distribution perimeter. The trafficker herself interrogates them, convinced they were sent by a rival organization to spy on her or steal merchandise. However, one of the men insists through tears that they don't work for anyone, that they just wandered into the area looking for pills, that they had no idea where they were. He begs her to let him live, promising never to come back again. But the criminal grabs a pair of scissors and, without hesitation, cuts off one of his fingers as a warning. In her world, mistakes are paid in blood. A few minutes later, our protagonist receives a call from the mafia. His first assignment is already underway. He must investigate the man who broke into Kat's property. Accompanied by Back, Boykins follows the suspect to an unfinished house, where he discovers that it's not just a random intruder, but an active member of a local gang. Inside, several gang members argue furiously about what happened. 2 of their own were brutally tortured by the mafia, and now they plan to retaliate with their full arsenal. Without wasting time, Kat's gang launches a preemptive strike. Armed and protected with bulletproof vests, they storm the house with a swift and precise offensive, killing nearly everyone in seconds, giving them no chance to react. Only one of the gang members manages to escape through the back, but before he can get away, Boykins intercepts him and knocks him unconscious with a blow. Seconds later, the rest of the group surrounds him and, without hesitation, shoot him at point-blank range until their magazines are empty. The next morning, Boykins finds his brother-in-law in the kitchen, pouring bottles of alcohol down the sink. Surprised, he tells him to get ready. They're going hunting right now. Out in the woods, after walking for a while, they spot a deer. Boykins hands Finney the rifle and tells him to take the shot. Even though the hangover still makes his hands shake, Finney takes a deep breath, aims carefully, and hits on the first try. That night, our protagonist meets with the father in a bar and confesses the situation with the mafia. During the conversation, he reveals part of his past. He used to know a dealer who, despite being a good person, was impulsive and always high. Together with his sister, they would often hang out with him, consuming everything without much thought, just pure recklessness. All that mattered to them were the drugs. They knew their luck, but they never stopped until one day he got a call from the hospital. His sister had overdosed. The doctor explained that the substances had interfered with the electrical signals controlling the heart, and because of that, they couldn't save her. Since he also had drugs in his system, he was unconscious for an entire week and missed the funeral. It was then, after losing the person he loved most, that he realized he needed help. The father praises him for having managed to come out of that darkness, reminding him that not everyone makes it back from that deep a hole. He tells him that he too did bad things in his life, that he had addictions in his youth, but his case wasn't as complicated. He had a revelation and decided to change. He still carries a few scars that remind him of his bad decisions. The next day, Boykins receives his second assignment, to eliminate a mafia dealer who has been making deals on his own. When he hears the target's name, Wes looks visibly uneasy because it's one of his trusted partners. Later, while unloading a shipment for a sale, Lazaro notices Wes' strange behavior. Feeling cornered, Wes decides to kill him sooner than planned. Our protagonist explodes in anger, reminding him that they were supposed to wait until after the deal with Lazaro's contact, but it's already too late. With no other choice, they hide the body in the van. At that moment, Lazaro's phone vibrates with a new message from his contact. Boykins unlocks the phone with the dead man's face and orders Wes to reply as if nothing had happened. Minutes later, the buyers arrive at the location and ask for Lazaro. Boykins firmly replies that they were sent on his behalf, that something came up and they had to step in to close the deal. The gang leader looks skeptical, claiming he's known Lazaro for a long time and that he would never miss an exchange. At that moment, he notices a bloodstain on Boykins' shoe. Without hesitation, Boykins draws his gun and clarifies that he doesn't want to fight, only to close the deal and let everyone go their own way. He lowers the weapon slowly, but the criminals try to take advantage of the moment. In response, Boykins kills two of them with precise shots. The last one tries to escape, but is quickly intercepted. To avoid further bloodshed, Boykins offers him a deal. He can take the shipment, while Boykins keeps the money, and they both walk away as if nothing happened. The young man accepts, takes the drugs, and leaves in silence. Afterward, Boykins calls his brother-in-law and tells him to bring a canister of gasoline. They load Lazaro's body and transfer the money into the truck. Before leaving, they set the van on fire to erase any evidence. While cleaning the bloodstains, Boykins reveals to his brother-in-law the deal he made with the mafia boss. He has already completed the second assignment, but he still doesn't trust her. He feels Kat has no intention of honoring the agreement, so he confesses he has been working on a new plan. Later, we see him meeting with Dyack in a secluded area. Boykins tells him that the trafficker has labs spread all over the county and is moving trucks full of narcotics. Dyack says the information is useful, but they need solid proof linking her directly to drug trafficking. Boykins promises to get it, but asks for something in return. He wants to remain anonymous. He won't risk his family. Hours later, Dyack catches one of the mafia's mules off guard. Cornered, the woman tries to bribe him with $100, but the officer refuses the money. When her bribes don't work, she pulls out a gun and tries to shoot him. However, Dyack reacts instantly, grabs her arm, pulls her out through the car window, and pins her to the ground. After handcuffing her, he checks the trunk and finds several bags of illegal substances. Then, he contacts his informant to update him on the situation, tells him that he already spoke with the prosecutor's office and they are willing to act against the mafia, but they need more information. They must locate the cartel's labs in order to launch the investigation. He asks him that in his next move, he should carry a hidden microphone to record the conversations and obtain solid evidence. At that moment, the gang shows up to pick him up and takes him straight to the boss's mansion. It turns out the trafficker has organized a celebration with her main criminal partners, though she presents it publicly as a business event, concealing the fact that her fortune comes from drug trafficking and other illegal activities. With everyone's attention, Kat delivers a speech thanking her supposed business associates for their loyalty. At the end, she makes a special mention of her son, revealing to those present that he is in fact the county official. After the speech, She approaches her former employee and reminds him that he used to be one of her best men. Though their relationship ended badly, she admits she was a tough boss, maybe too demanding, but she's decided to give him a second chance. She acknowledges that in his last assignment, he saved a key deal anyone else would have failed. She tells him she has big plans for him and that this night is only the beginning. Our protagonist walks toward the bonfire, which triggers a memory of his past. The day he decided to leave the mafia, Kat had demanded that he burn his hand as a condition for leaving, a permanent mark of belonging. Moments later, the trafficker announces they have a special guest. It's the agent, who is captured by her men. As if it were a casual anecdote, the guests laugh and mock him. Kat explains that the officer has been causing too much trouble and that she intends to use him as an example to prevent future problems. She orders her men to torture him, and without hesitation, they smash his legs with hammers. When the gag is removed, Dyack begs for his life. He has a son waiting at home and promises never to interfere or tell anyone. Kat replies that she's glad to hear that, but it's not enough. She needs to make an example. At that moment, Boykins quietly approaches, ready to end the agent's suffering and dispose of the body. However, before he can speak, Kat turns and slits the agent's throat. She then orders her men to take the body away, her dogs need to be fed, and instructs her new employee to take care of the remains. Boykins notes that this would be his third assignment, which means their deal is over. The boss steps close and tells him she doesn't care what he thinks, it's she who decides when things end. The same applies to his family and even to his sister's body buried at the farm. The next morning, Back's gang discovers the messages between the agent and Cash. When Kat reviews them, she appears visibly shaken. After a tense pause, still reeling from the betrayal, she orders her men to deal with him, and this time, they must act with an iron hand. Meanwhile, at the farm, Boykins calls his brother-in-law to tell him the plan has failed. He needs to think of a new one. Finney says he'll take Savannah to church, asks if he needs help, but Boykins says he doesn't want to put them in danger. They'll be safe at church. During Mass, Finney can't hold back his tears and quietly steps out so his daughter won't see him that way. After the service, Savannah finds him crying. He hugs her tightly and apologizes, regrets not being a good father, and confesses that losing his wife broke him, but promises to change, to be more present, and to care for her as she deserves. At that moment, Wilder approaches with a faint smile, says he noticed the impact of his words, that he had long awaited this moment, and confesses that he tailored the sermon with him in mind. Finney thanks him and promises they'll attend more often, though for now, he'll dedicate his days to making up for lost time with his daughter. Just as they're about to get into their truck, Back's gang intercepts them. Several men get out, armed with bats. Finney grabs his daughter and runs, but they catch up quickly. With no choice, he pushes her aside and faces the attackers, managing to knock down two, but the rest hit him from behind. Some witnesses try to intervene, but a gangster points a gun at them, forcing them back. Savannah is grabbed by one of the traffickers and, screaming, watches as her father is beaten mercilessly. Suddenly, the pastor lunges at the armed man, giving Savannah a chance to break free. Doe points his gun at the pastor, saying he'd love to blow his head off, but Back intervenes, ordering his men to get in the vehicle. They must leave before the police arrive. In the next scene, our protagonist arrives at the hospital. Inside the room, he finds his niece crying inconsolably beside her father's bed. The pastor informs him that Finney has died. The gang beat him to death. Meanwhile, the sheriff decides to confront the trafficker at her mansion. As he approaches the perimeter, he exchanges tense glances with the guards at the gate. Minutes later, Kat emerges calmly. Jollister wastes no time accusing her. Her men beat Finney to death. He demands she control her soldiers, warns that townspeople are nervous. Kat advises him to focus on his sheriff's office and stop meddling where he shouldn't. She dislikes his men snooping around her affairs. As Jollister turns to leave, Kat throws one last warning. He should be grateful he still has his job. Many would love to take his place, so he should think very carefully about his next moves. After consoling his niece, Boykins approaches Wilder and confesses he intends to take revenge, that he won't stand idle while his family is destroyed. The priest listens silently, then asks him to join him in prayer. They go into a side room, where Wilder places a hand on his shoulder. Deeply shaken, Our protagonist says he doesn't understand God's plan. He took away those he loved most, and now left an innocent child without a father. He feels abandoned, but Wilder tells him the opposite, that what he's going through is a test, one that requires faith and courage. Boykins breathes deeply, then says he'll do what he thinks is right, that his blood boils, his instincts guide him, and he won't seek justice, but instead eliminate the guilty. All he asks is that they care for his niece, because he will finish what was started. He needs strength, clarity, and determination to kill those bastards. Later, we see our protagonist ambushing Doe and one of his associates. Without giving them time to react, Boykins shoots the first gangster dead. Doe floors the accelerator, using the car as a shield as he maneuvers to flank him. He circles back, trying to surprise Cash, but Cash reacts in time and shoots him in the head. But as the bullet hits him, the gangster's body slumps onto the wheel, making the car accelerate uncontrollably, ramming into our protagonist and knocking him unconscious. When Boykins regains consciousness, he rises with difficulty, aching from the impact. He approaches the gang member's corpse and notices several missed calls from his boss on the phone. Returning to his truck, he realizes that the keys were lost during the fall. As he prepares to go back and search for them, the roar of an approaching engine reaches his ears. Spotting Back coming toward the area, he decides not to take the risk. Without hesitation, he disappears into the forest. Minutes later, Commissioner Jollister arrives at the scene. While speaking with Back, Kat pulls up in her vehicle. The commissioner approaches her and informs her that Cash's car was found a few meters away, with the keys lying near the bodies. He asks if she requires any official assistance. The trafficker coldly replies that the only thing she wants is for what happened to remain in the shadows. Later, the gang storms into Father Wilder's house, finding him in the kitchen finishing a meal. When they notice he has served 2 plates, one of them asks if he's expecting company. Wilder calmly explains that the second plate is for his pet, and then serves the food to his dog as if nothing unusual were happening. Without hesitation, the gang demands to know where Savannah is. With firm conviction, Wilder insists he knows nothing. West steps forward menacingly, but the priest reacts quickly, striking him in the face with the hot pan. The others pounce on the priest, knocking him down and brutally beating him. His desperate groans echo through the house. From her hiding place, Savannah cannot bear it any longer. She steps out and begs them to stop, offering herself in exchange as long as they don't kill him. Back smirks and tells the priest he should be grateful. The girl just saved his life. Before leaving, Back instructs him to deliver a message to Boykins. Kat has proposed a deal, his life in exchange for his nieces. After wandering through the forest for several minutes, Boykins reaches the priest's house. He finds the door open and cautiously enters. Grabbing a kitchen knife, he heads to the basement, where he finds Wilder battered and armed. The priest explains that Back's gang took Savannah, demanding an exchange, Boykins' life for hers. Showing him a small arsenal, Wilder says he already has a plan. Later, they storm the town hall to kidnap the trafficker's son. They hold the guard at gunpoint and head straight to Zyke's office, catching him off guard and taking him without resistance. When Kat learns of the abduction, she receives a call from her son's phone. Boykins proposes a trade and sends her a location. But the trafficker twists the rules. They must come to her house at 4 p.m., or she will take another one of their loved ones hostage. She makes it clear, if he doesn't accept her terms, she will dispose of the merchandise, even if it means killing her own son. Moments later, Wilder arrives at the mansion's outer perimeter with the trafficker's son tied to the hood of his vehicle as a human shield, a tactic designed to prevent the guards from opening fire. He steps out cautiously, and points his pistol directly at Zyke. Meanwhile, at the back of the property, Boykins ambushes a guard, kills him silently, and continues toward the interior. Inside the mansion, Savannah seizes an opportunity. Sliding her chair toward the fireplace, she grabs the poker and, with effort, cuts through the rope binding her wrists. She quickly snatches a rifle from the table and shoots the guard watching over her. The gunshot alerts Kat, who immediately orders her men to fire on the priest. The gang leader bursts inside upon hearing the shot, trying to subdue the girl before she can escape. Boykins, advancing from the rear, neutralizes another guard but runs out of rifle ammunition. Without stopping, he switches to his pistol and presses forward, determined to rescue his niece. The traffickers move fast, flanking the priest, who holds his ground behind the vehicle, returning fire at every attempt to close in. Amid the chaos, Zyke frees himself and dives behind a pile of logs for cover. Seeing this, his mother unleashes gunfire at the priest to keep him pinned. From cover, Zyke manages to grab a weapon from one of the fallen guards. Taking advantage of a momentary lapse, he shoots Wilder in the back. Even so, the priest spins around and fires back, hitting Zyke in the leg before he can flee. Wounded, the young man limps into the forest, searching for refuge, but fate turns cruel. He is intercepted by his mother's guard dogs, who tear into him savagely. His screams echo through the woods, sending Kat racing to her son's aid. But she arrives too late, finding his mangled corpse, his stomach ripped open, throat torn, the dogs feeding on him in a frenzy. Meanwhile, inside the mansion, Boykins ambushes back from behind, knocking him down and disarming him. They fight brutally, trading blows until Back pulls a knife and plunges it into Boykins' abdomen. He hurls him onto a table and attempts to finish him. But Boykins reacts just in time, seizing a shard from a shattered ceramic jug and driving it deep into Back's throat, killing him in a blood-soaked instant. Grabbing the fallen weapon, Boykins, gravely wounded, presses forward until he finds his niece. At that moment, Kat appears and shoots him in the leg, then again in the side, forcing him to cover behind a billiard table with Savannah. Gasping in pain, he pleads with her to escape through the window, to run far from the county and never look back. She refuses, desperate not to abandon him, but he begs her with what little strength remains. Finally, Savannah obeys, slipping out the window. Kat then emerges from the end of the hall. Both fire at once. Boykins' shots miss as his pistol clicks empty, while Kat's bullet strikes him square in the shoulder. As she advances slowly, she coldly promises that she will find his niece, no matter the cost. But before she can finish him, Savannah suddenly returns. Silent and determined, she plunges her knife into Kat's skull, killing her instantly in a brutal end. Months later, Father Wilder walks back into the church, leaning on a cane. He surveys the place with nostalgia and mutters that he missed his masses. With a wry grin, he jokes about having had a small accident shaving, trying to downplay the scars on his face. Elsewhere, Boykins and Savannah continue tending the farm, living a quiet life, leaving the past behind, and focusing on healing.